The biggest advantage that Fury has coming into this fight is
pro boxing fans, we're here in London. Dan Hardy, it's been a minute. Last time I saw you, I think it was out for Fury and Ngannou in Saudi Arabia. This time around, we're here for another big clash in Saudi Arabia. First of all, Dan Hardy, how are you, mate?
I'm really good, my friend, really good. Glad to be here. Obviously enjoyed the Ngannou-Fury fight and the whole event around it, but surprised to be here, honestly, for this. I wasn't expecting this match to get made, and you know, anytime I get the call up and there's an MMA guy in boxing, I'm the guy to call. I'm happy to be here.
Let's talk about this one. Listen, a lot of people expected Francis to go down against Fury, and you know what, maybe just fizzle out the heavyweight division. That was not the case. He ripped up the script nicely in Saudi Arabia last time. This time around, and this is a point I want to make to you, he talked about this fighting Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. He's done it within 6 months of being a professional boxer. What do you make of that?
It's wild, isn't it? I mean, it's a movie script. It's a movie script. You know, I remember thinking in the build-up to the Fury fight, like of all the heavyweights he could have fought, Fury was the most difficult, in my opinion. Tricky, high fight IQ, tall, rangy, you know. This for me would have been a much better first boxing match out, because I kind of know what I'm dealing with Anthony Joshua a bit. He's really good basics. He's got good fundamentals. He doesn't have the same level of trickery that Fury's got. So I feel like this is an easier fight for Ngannou to really show what he's capable of. But the performance that he gave against Fury, now I don't know what to expect. Like I spoke to you, I picked Fury was going to win that fight. I was surprised as everybody else. And it's because Ngannou looked like a boxer. It's not that he looked like an MMA fighter that was effective in boxing. He looked like a boxer. He maintained his shape and composure. He was patient, you know, picked his shots, wasn't biting on any feints or anything, wasn't clinching. I honestly don't know what version to expect of Ngannou in this fight.
Just picking it back up, Dan, what impressed you the most about Ngannou? You've listed off a few accolades there that you thought were impressive from Francis, but what was that one thing when you saw him fight Tyson Fury that impressed you the most?
It was his composure. I mean, I was standing next to Carl Frampton at the same time, and he's like, he's not biting on feints. He's staying in his stance, and it was like that was the shock, is that we were expecting either anxiety to make him go crashing in or anxiety to make him close up and stay away, and he just didn't. He stood there with confidence, like he knew exactly what he was going to do. It was almost like someone had told him that he was going to do 10 rounds and look really good, and he just stood there in that first round with the confidence to let it play out. Like that really rattled Fury, in my opinion, because like the whole game plan must have been built around the idea of making him miss and making him tired, and then punishing him on the aftermath of those missed punches. But because he wasn't biting on the feints, he wasn't giving Fury anything to work on. Like that's the biggest surprise for me, because as an MMA fighter, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I'd been like, oh, he's gonna hit me, and then I'm going for him, and you would have read me like a book. But he was one of the most difficult people I've ever seen to read in the ring.
Anthony Joshua, though, last time around looked very impressive against Otto Wallin. He's been under a lot of scrutiny. He seems to be the fighter that gets put under the microscope a lot more than a lot of fighters in the UK. What did you make of his performance against Otto Wallin? Do you feel like this improved Joshua with Ben Davison can pick up another world title?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, he's definitely looking better. I think you can see that he's been given a game that's going to help build his confidence, because he's not overextending himself too much. He's sticking to basics, and he's having a very, very good job. He's doing a very good job with his lead hand. That's going to be a key in this fight. He's going to need to stay behind that lead hand and make sure that rear hand's nice and tight to his chin. And we know he's got lovely variety in that lead hand. He's got a nice stinging jab. He's got a lovely check hook he uses. But at the same time, moving in behind the jab to set up his crosses, you know, I mean, that's what he did against Helenius, wasn't it? Backed him up against the ropes and put him on the end of that right hand. That kind of movement is really what could cause Ngannou problems. Ngannou standing his ground and swinging back might just leave him open for those kind of shots. It's Ngannou's ability to set up his finishing punches, which, in my opinion, he looks to have improved a great deal in his last couple of fights.
How big is this for Africa? We see obviously both men representing different countries in Africa, but how big is this when you get Francis Ngannou, Anthony Joshua representing one of the biggest clashes of 2024?
It's going to be huge. I mean, we're going to be in Africa, very present with the PFL very soon. Ngannou, the head of PFL Africa, you know what I mean? There's so much talent in that region of the world that we're not really quite tapping into yet. We see a few superstars make their way out of that continent, but with this kind of attention, with the likes of Ngannou going into that region and looking for new fighters, I think Africa is going to be a hotbed in the years to come for fighters. I'm excited to see what talent we get.
Just quickly talking about Tyson Fury, talk to me about his fight with Usyk, a big fight on February 17th in Riyadh. Give me your thoughts on that closer we get to that fight.
You know, the biggest difference, of course, is going to be the size of Fury. I feel like both of these guys, they've got incredible fight IQ. They're very good at reading one another and laying those traps. So it's going to be a very cerebral game, very much a chess match. But the biggest advantage that Fury has coming into this fight is his size, is his ability to bear over Usyk. You know, he is a very small heavyweight Usyk, and that could be an advantage because of his footwork and his speed, etc. But at the same time, I feel like over the rounds, if Fury's able to bear down on him and bear over him, that's going to pay dividends. And I feel like this, we might get a decision where we go, well, if Usyk was a bit bigger, he might have taken that one. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Kind of feel like it might be that situation.
Final one before I let you go. There seems to be news breaking out about Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal getting into the ring this time, not in MMA. What do you make of this sort of news breaking out right now?
I mean, you know, who knows what's going to happen? One day after another, I open my Instagram and find out these wild matchups. It makes sense to me. I mean, you know, Masvidal's not going to come back for anything other than an almost guaranteed win. He beat Nate fairly comfortably in mixed martial arts, and he beat him with striking. I feel like he knows he's going to be able to beat in a boxing ring as well. And I think, you know, watching the Jake Paul fight and seeing what Jake Paul was able to do to Nate, I think Masvidal thinks he can just replicate that, get a payday, and bounce back out of the combat sports world. It's a safer matchup for Nate because there's less to lose than losing to Jake Paul, but it's, you know, this is a win-win for Masvidal.
Final one before I let you go. I do want to talk about one of our own Brits in Michael Venom Page. Finally crossed over. Talk to me about this one, him joining the UFC, getting his UFC debut just in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this one.
Man, I've been a fan of MVP for a long time. You know, we were never really going to see his full potential unless he stepped into the octagon, right? He needs to be on that UFC roster so he's in amongst all the best welterweights on the planet. This, for me, is where MVP can really show what he's capable of. Like, we know what he did in Bellator, fracturing people's skulls with knees and that kind of stuff, kicking through people's legs with no bother at all. What does he do against the UFC level welterweights? And now obviously we've got Leon as well. We've got, you know, I mean, we've got two superstar Brits right here going into a world title fight potentially in the next 6 months. I don't want to pick that fight because I'm a big fan of both of those guys. I'm just relieved to see MVP in the UFC.
Cool. Dan, listen, it's a pleasure talking to yourself. No doubt next time I see you should be in Riyadh. Are you flying over for Fury?
I hope so, yeah, that's the call.
I'll probably see you then. Thank you very much for talking to Pro Boxing Fans. Top man.